business. So this time, a bit, this is gonna be a bit, all focus should be here because your assessment would be based on this topic here. Okay, it's part of your assessment. Okay, you're ready? So this is gonna be a bit interactive. So just use this. Okay. So you won't mind sitting down for this one hat because we're gonna scribble some things. Is it okay? Okay. So actually you can have some snacks. Make sure that it doesn't distract your seatmate because if the seatmate is hungry, it's gonna be a nuisance. They might eat you for it. Okay, but you can share. So when you have food, always have extra. So that your seatmate grow fat together. Everybody happy? Okay. Okay. So now we're in the topic about biochemical reactions. So I had this is not in Harper's by the way, because and usually it's not presented to subjects. During my time it wasn't even emphasized. Because like usually we just delve into clinical scenarios right away, or the typical Harper's relating kind of lecture. In this case, for you to understand your subject, you need to understand also what biochemical reactions are found. Okay? So in this case, you need to. I'm not sure if we can I'm not sure if I can do. Okay, so anyways, going back, so you need your biochemical reaction. You need to understand biochemical reaction so that you would understand why you're studying a certain pathway. Okay, so which is which, what's the purpose? When we want to correlate biochemistry and physiology later on, we can explain this is why it happened and the hows of it. Okay, so let's say R are the reactants and P is the product. Okay, and majority of these biochemical reactions, as you can see here, is that can you see the arrows, right? Yeah, here, the arrows. So the arrows shows that the reaction is reversible. Okay? And this happens under physiological conditions, especially if there is enough concentration for substrates. But since we're talking about metabolism, and then here metabolism, it should be, we are actually focusing on that metabolism should be in equilibrium. So when we say equilibrium, there should be what's equilibrium? Balance. Okay? So that in this term, it implies the rate of a forward reaction, this one here, is equal to balance or imbalance in the corresponding reverse reactions. You can see here, this one. Okay? So, what's up with this formula? Okay. So let's say if the system is closed, okay, that is one in which there is no addition of any reactant or removal of the product. The reaction will then comes to a perfect balance, as you can see here. So there's equilibrium. So then you will say, okay, so this is at the point of equilibrium. But sometimes, in some instances, the concept of this point of equilibrium, it means that concentration of R and P should be equal, okay? But in physiological terms, in our body, it doesn't happen. It's not equal at all times. So that's why it's defined here that the point of equilibrium is defined as the relative concentrations of R and P. When the rate of the P is exactly equal to the rate of the formation of R. Okay? That's why there is that relationship here. Sorry, here. And let's say the concentration of the reactant is known. Then it follows that the concentrations of R and P, when there is already equilibrium, they should reflect the relative rates of the forward and reverse reaction. So meaning that there should be a balanced reaction. That's why you have that KEQ as a symbol here. Okay? And the brackets would indicate concentration in moles. So remember those terms, molar concentration. I think that you had that in the early parts of your journey in chemistry during your undergrad years. So if the equilibrium concentration of E is greater than here, as you can see here, P is greater than R. We can say that the forward reaction is favored. That's why it's the equilibrium point is more than 1. So if the value of the KEQ is high, then most likely the reaction will go forward. It's harder now to go back. Okay? That's why you have an arrow that is longer, as you can see. Right? Can you appreciate there at that side? Because the projector is not so good. You can still see? Okay. So, when we say it's also the reverse of that principle. If R is greater than P, the reverse is favored. So there is more of the reverse reaction than the forward. So the true equilibrium then will occur only when R, P, but KEQ, or the equilibrium point, is a measure of the relative rates, not absolute, but relative rates of the forward and reverse reaction. So meaning that if the further away a reaction is from a true equilibrium, the greater the energy change will be involved in that reaction. Okay? So that's usually how the reaction goes. We will go back to this part when we talk about, I think about enzymes. Okay, this is the ones that, or when you have your oxidative phosphorylation topics. Okay, so you will go back to that. So now, at this point, we will now focus on your chemical biochemical reactions. So most actually, the biochemical reactions are reversible, and thus you would say that therefore are quite considered to be in chemical equilibrium. But however, our bodies or the cells are not closed systems. Okay, so the fuel is constantly, it's like it's being added, or waste products are removed. So remember the principle of energy? It is neither created nor destroyed. So it's the same way. Hello. So it's the same way that the fuel, since we are living systems, we use energy. Okay. So the energy, if it's as a waste product, it comes off as what? Heat. No? So the relative concentrations in this cell are fairly constant, and that it will be subject to moderate fluctuations. Okay. So with this principle about equilibrium, the reactions being not able to really be in absolute equilibrium, you would say that the biochemical reactions would never reach a true equilibrium because a product of one reaction could be the substrate for the next. Okay, so that's why it could be it's like net formation of products. So if the reactions inside a cell were true equilibria, there would be no net flow of substrate, no formation of end products, then there would be no metabolic pathway. So this is the reason why it's just saying that you would describe it as a steady state reaction. Okay? So meaning it doesn't end. It's there, it's in balance, but reactions in our body could be used by another reaction, and so on. That's why if you browse through your books, you will see that it's a pathway. Okay? So meaning there is not flow of matter, but the instantaneous concentrations of intermediates fluctuate relatively little unless there will be a stress for meaning it would respond to a physiological challenge. So here are different reactions. The first part, or the first type, would be atomic and molecular rearrangements. This is the one. Last time, I remember Canva, we could write on Canva. Big side. Okay. So for example here, isomerization is an example of rearrangements in an atomic level or a molecular level. So it could have it could have two types as well, meaning a change in the functional group or the repositioning of atoms within the molecule. In this case, so ribose 5-FP is an aldehyde, and then it would be converted to become ketone as ribose 5-FP. So where would the rearrangement happen? Where do you think? So from an aldehyde to a ketone here. Okay? So there's just a simple repositioning. Right? You got it? You understand what it means? No? No. Okay. Let me I'll shift to this one. Okay, so the sad part of this is that I cannot write anything. Anyways, I'll do PowerPoints later in the future. So here, so you have aldehyde here, okay? Then it becomes ketone. Which one is transferred? H, no? So you got. So those have that. So you don't need to really, remember, just understand the principle. Next type, repositioning within the same molecule. So this one here, 2-phosphoglycerate is there is repositioning of the P group. Okay, here. It's in the carbon 2. Then to become 3-phosphoglycerate. 2-phospho, meaning the phosphorus is found in carbon 2. Then its reposition, usually through the enzyme phosphoglycerate, it is transferred or repositioned to the third or carbon 3. Okay? So you can see the pattern. So usually when you talk about carbohydrates, you would count from the aldehyde end. You will start the counting of the carbons. So that's why it's 2 here, and then in their position, the phosphorus, okay, the ones that I highlighted, then it's repositioned to 3. Okay. So this enzyme, by the way, is an isomerase enzyme. And this pathway, you will find this in glycolysis and gluconeogenesis. So those are the terms that you would want to know. Next, so that's for molecular, atomic, and molecular rearrangements. So before, you got your molecules, and then that could also be rearranged. The second type is wherein an atom could be repositioned. Okay? Next, substitution. So from the word itself, it's replacement of one atom or group with another. So for example here, a hydrogen atom could be replaced by a methyl group. So you have homocysteine, so this is homocysteine, and then it becomes methionine. It needs a folate donor, a methyl donor, which is in the form of folate. So where is the substitution here? Where do you think? So look at folate. It has a methyl donor. Then where is CH3 now? It's here. Okay? So you got it? So there is a substitution, meaning it's replaced. Okay? So folate has this methyl component, and then it replaces that part through your methionine synthase. So since remember homocysteine has sulfur, it's an amino acid that contains sulfur. And it is a metabolite of your methionine, so which is also another amino acid. And the important there is that it has this, if it's high, there could be a risk for cardiovascular events. So that's one clinical importance with your homocysteine. Next, redox reactions. I know some of you are familiar with redox reactions. Okay? Oxidation and reduction. They always occur together. Who is well versed in microbiology? So I'm sure some tests to identify bacteria would involve redox reaction, right? True? Medtex or medtex here? You have microbiome, you have para, right? Or biology majors. So I'm sure you are very well versed. So for example here, a certain AH, it's the one that is reduced, and it needs a coenzyme, and then with a series of two enzymes, you can see that you have the combination of the coenzyme. Usually the ones with the hydrogen comes as the reduced part. Okay. So to be specific, you have lactate and your nicotine and then adenine compound. Okay. So lactate plus NAD plus becomes pyruvate, and then the NADH is the reduced component. Okay. So meaning the function of this is that your ions back. Okay, remember the plus here? Okay. So it's when it's oxidized, you will know that there is also the release of the hydrogen atom. Okay, so that's why it's reduced. So your lactate dehydrogenase is an enzyme that will oxidize two hydrogen atoms. Okay, it removes, when you see it oxidized, it kind of removes it. So, and then thus you have NAD that is reduced to become NADH and plus H. Okay, so you got the pattern. Lactate becomes pyruvate through lactate dehydrogenase because two hydrogen molecules are being oxidized or removed. And then this is the reduced form, the NADH. This is important when you go to your, the last part of your glycolysis cycle, going to your PREPs. So you will find lactate dehydrogenase as an important enzyme if the anaerobic metabolic pathway is optimized. So that's why when you hear or when you see lactate dehydrogenase, it's part of the oxidorreductases. So dehydrogenase, you know this one would oxidize something and then you would receive the product as the reduced part of the component. And mostly, of course, the reaction is reversible. The arrows here, by the way, you can see reactions with double arrows. Usually they are reversible. So they could go from one form to another. It's just reversible. Okay? If just one arrow going in that direction, meaning that's just the only product, no going back. Vice versa. Okay, got it? So this is also another important checkpoint of gluconeogenesis and DNA metabolism. Okay, next, another type. Oxidative decarboxylation. Another chemical change when we talk about oxidation is decarboxylation. When you say decarboxylation, meaning CO2 is released or removed. Okay. So another also is deamination. You take out the amine group. Okay. So, pyruvate decarboxylase, as you can see in this example, is a very regulated component of the enzyme here is actually part of the pyruvate decarboxylase or dehydrogenase complex, by the way. So, meaning pyruvate will be converted to become acetyl coenzyme A, this one here. And thus, it would link your glycolysis to your Krebs cycle, tricarboxylic acid cycle. Another application. This enzyme is present in yeast and bacteria. So it can be carboxylate pyruvate to yield acetaldehyde. And this is often reduced by alcohol dehydrogenase to make ethanol. Now you will get to have your drinks through this reaction. Okay? So that's the industry or the industrial application for this. Clinical in the liver. You got it so far? Okay, redox, another redox reaction. This time it's glutamate dehydrogenase. So this case is the oxidative deamination, wherein ammonia is released. So your glutamate here will have this reversible conversion of glutamate to alpha-ketoglutarate and ammonia. Thus, NAD here would be reduced to NADH. So all organisms have this catabolic or anabolic reaction. So it could break down and then it also could form one new product. So this is also crucial because once this is metabolized, glutamate becomes alpha-ketoglutarate. It leads to the synthesis of ATP. So part also the formation of ammonia, acid-base equilibrium, and redox homeostasis. You can also get this as well with lipid synthesis and lactate production. So that's one. So that's our redox reaction. What are your redox reaction? Oxidation reduction, oxidative decarboxylation, and oxidative deamination. Next would be cleavage. What is cleavage? There is breakdown. Okay? So meaning there is like you split something. So a very common reaction that is a cleavage reaction is hydrolysis. What is hydrolysis? You use water to break a bond. Which one is common? Usually, once with the water bonds of the hydrogen, no? Water splits. It is split to water. So, perfect example here is the urine glucose 6-phosphatase. So you would find this in the liver and the kidneys, and this is wherein if the body would need glucose, especially during prolonged states of fasting or starvation. So, since most of the phosphatases would act on water-soluble compounds, your glucose 6-phosphatase is actually found, or it's bound in an enzyme being associated with your endoplasmic reticulum. So this is only found in tissues that would produce or break down, would give up sugar or release free glucose into the bloodstream, like your liver, kidneys, and the small intestine epithelia. So usually, you know what happens here? You add water, so the phosphate is released, and you got your glucose. That's just simple. Glucose 6-phosphate to glucose 6-phosphatase and water, it then ends up releasing your glucose in the bloodstream. Okay? You don't have this, you're gonna starve. Okay? I saw some of you just ate, so you have free glucose from your diet. No starvation. Okay, next. Here, in this case, aldolase, wherein one molecule is split into two. So you have here, most of the reactions that I showed you, you can find this in your first pathway that you're going to tackle as we go through along. I think in the GI part, you will get to know these reactions already. So fructose 1,6-bisphosphate becomes glyceraldehyde 3P plus dihydroxyacetone. So your enzyme aldolase is termed as a glycolytic enzyme that is based on sugar. Then it catalyzes the conversion of the main compound, the fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Then it becomes your G3P and your DAP, or DHAP. Okay? So you will find this in glycolysis. Okay, in the middle part of glycolysis. So that's for cleavage. Cleavage, just a breakup. Two types, water, you can use it to split molecules, or from enzyme, one atom is split into two. It's broken down into two. Okay, condensation. When you say condensation, meaning there is a combination. Two molecules are joined together when you take out what component? Water. So usually you will find this in your amino acids. So through peptide bonds, okay? So synthases, we will hear or read about synthases. So they are the ones that will catalyze the formation of amino acids via peptide bonds or monosaccharides via glycosidic bonds. Okay? So you need water, by the way, for the sugar to combine. You need water for this addition. You take out water, rather, sorry. You take out water. So when you say condensation, is it anabolic or catabolic? Think about it. Hold that thought. We're going to go to our next part of the lecture. Condensation. Similar, addition. So it's actually not a combination, but it's more the difference between condensation and addition is it's something to do with water. This time, water is not eliminated, but molecules will be joined together. And you need energy to do this. Okay, so this is a costly type of reaction because you have to use ATP. ATP is the energy currency of the cell. So two molecules are joined, but water is not eliminated. So, for example, glutamine synthase. So it's an enzyme that would catalyze the amylation of glutamine to glutamine. Okay? So it's important because this is where you've got your protein synthesis, your nucleic acids. Okay? It's even important that glutamine is important to detoxify the brain it's important in the brain to detoxify ammonia and regulate the concentration of the neurotransmitter pools of glutamate and gamma-aminobutyric acid. So, glutamine is an important, glutamine synthase is an important enzyme for this reaction. So this one is a positive type of reaction because it needs ATP. Addition, but also form through a double bond. This time we need water. When fumarase adds water to fumarate and becomes your malate. So this is a substrate to regenerate oxaloacetate as the formation of the third NADH or the reduction process of the cycle for acetyl coenzyme A. when you go to your PCA, you understand these reactions happening. Glycolysis, PCA, you would get to know this. So I want to give this to you in advance so that you will have an easy way understanding the processes. This is the whys and the hows of each process. Are you still with me? Know that? It's okay. You pat your friend in the back, just like that, enough to wake them up. Okay, that's violent. No violence. Okay. So then, what are the reactions so far that we've got? One is, just a review. We have first is atomic and molecular reaction. Second is substitution. Industrial reactions. Modification and addition. Okay. How about transfer? So usually this happens with your ATP. Okay? A phosphate group may be transferred from ATP to another substrate. So here is the example glucokinase or hexokinase. So it catalyzes when glucose, this is glucose by the way, with ATP, it becomes your glucose-6-phosphate plus ATP. So transfer, a phosphate group is transferred from ATP to become a new substrate. So this is how glucose becomes inside, it goes into the cell. So usually you find this enzyme in the liver and the pancreas. So this is how glucose becomes stored, in the cell with the help of insulin. Because glucose should not be in the, there's a certain level only of glucose in the blood. If it's too much, it will cause your adverse effects, what we call as your diabetes mellitus. So that's why it has to be inside the cell, because glucose is the one that's needed for the cell to survive. Okay? They're why. The products of glucose is not toxic. If you use lipid, yes, it yields very high energy, we say protein, but the end products of these substances are toxic to the cell. So that's why the cell can use it, but the cell dies. Whereas with glucose, it's not. So that's why glucose has to go inside the cell. Okay? You only need a certain amount in the blood. What's the normal reference range of glucose in the blood? It's around 70 to 100. Okay? That's it. Beyond that, if it's 100 to 125, it's what we call your impaired glucose tolerance. 126 and above, that's your diabetes. Okay. That's a clinical application for it. So remember this one? Transfer reactions. Okay? So another is that swapping could happen between two molecules. For example, here we have glutamate and oxaloacetate to become your 2-oxalglutaric and aspartate. What is the significance of this enzyme? Where do you find this AST? In the liver. So this enzyme is what we call as a transaminase, meaning transfer. Transaminase. So will transfer or convert aspartate to become alpha-ketoglutarate to oxaloacetate and glutamate. So these are all terms, by the way, oxaloglutarate. So that's why you would get requested SGOT. Okay, that's similar to AST. So it's present in all tissues, like except the bone. You find it in the highest levels where? In what organ? The liver. Okay? And your skeletal muscles. transfer. You can see here. And then you would get that this part, it's done already, but you find it in aspartate. Okay? Another, complex groups. So, in the pentose phosphate pathway, so one of the reactions here is you will use transaldoylase. So, C3 from cetylhydrolose segment P plus glyceraldehyde 3P will become erythrose 4P plus fructose 6P. The P there is the phosphate half. So it will transfer a C3 unit to glyceraldehyde to produce your products E4P and your F6. Later, when we talk about those things, you will understand. Okay, some tips. You want that? Tips. Listen. Tap your partner. Lightly, enough to wake them up. Stop your crush. Who has crushed already? Keep it to yourself, you don't care. Okay. The reactions mentioned illustrate the chemical changes that would occur in biochemistry. So, when you meet the reaction for the first time, first, what's the important step? You need to identify. So, what are the steps again? Who can stand here or stand lang in front and tell us all the different reactions? Who's confident enough? My prize next week. Sige, I'll be ano. In 5, 4, 3, 2. No one will pick up the challenge? Come on. Not serious. See, everyone na lang. But no prize na lang. Okay, first reaction. Okay, raising hands. Second. Third. Okay. Fourth. Fifth. You have the sixth. Seventh. Okay. So, these are just basic reactions we see. First, when you meet it, identify. Okay? Plus, then we go for the specific details. Usually, you would find where in the cell compartment is this found. I'm sure you're fed up with all the cells already from histo. You've got your anatomy, sometimes anatomy. You start with the cell, right? Then you also have your physiology. You also talk about the cells. No. So, in biochemistry, we also talk about the cell. So look out for different compartments. Is it intracellular, extracellular, within a vesicle or an organelle? Okay? Those are the different things you want to know. So, enzyme-mediated catalysis requires breaking and making of chemical bonds between atoms. So that's the purpose of your enzymes. So this would involve changes in energy, and you get to understand more of this through your thermodynamics lecture and your enzymes lecture. So the enzymes will reduce the activation energy. You know, mind you, in a reaction it needs a lot of energy. But with the help of enzymes, it makes it faster. Okay? If without enzymes, we won't be able to live. Okay? So, that is when your changes in the energy will determine if whether the reaction could go through and produce products. Okay? It really depends upon the speed and other factors like your concentration of the substrates, concentration of the enzymes, temperature, and the presence of activators or inhibitors. Okay. So, let's move on to the next topic. More topic to come. I said this is a very boring lecture. So, but all are connected. So, this time I'll take a longer break